The air felt thin aboard the interstellar colony ship, Wayward Hope. The massive vessel carried over 2,000 colonists through the darkness of space, all of them dreaming of a new life on a distant world. But today, that dream seemed further away than ever. Warning lights flashed along the corridors. The ship's computer announced in its calm, feminine voice, "Attention all colonists. Resource conservation protocol now in effect. Water rations reduced by 30% until further notice." Zoe Washington hurried through the residential section, a small container clutched tightly against her chest. At 17, she was tall and slender with dark skin that contrasted with the sterile white of the ship's interior. Her normally relaxed face was tight with worry as she glanced nervously around each corner. "Just a little further," she whispered to herself. Her grandmother's quarters were just 2 more sections away. The old woman had been sick for 3 days now, her fever rising despite the medicine Dr. Martinez had provided. She needed water. More than the reduced rations would allow. As Zoe rounded the final corner, a firm hand gripped her shoulder. "Well, what do we have here?" The voice was cold and carried authority. Zoe turned slowly to face Lieutenant Commander Gabriel Price. His uniform was perfectly pressed, his posture rigid. His pale face showed no emotion except for his eyes, which narrowed as they focused on the container she held. "Sir, I can explain," Zoe began. "I'm sure you can," Price said. "But first, hand over what you're carrying." With trembling hands, Zoe surrendered the container. Price opened it and looked inside. Water. 2 liters more than your daily ration. His voice grew harder. "You know the rules, Miss Washington. During resource conservation, theft is treated as a serious offense." "It's not theft," Zoe protested. "My grandmother is sick. She needs more water or her fever won't break." Dr. Martinez said, "If Dr. Martinez authorized extra rations, he would have filed the proper forms," Price interrupted. "Did he file those forms, Miss Washington?" Zoe looked down at her feet. "No, sir. He said the request would be denied because we're at critical levels." "Then this is theft," Price concluded. He pressed a button on his wrist communicator. "Security. To Residential Section 7. I need an escort." Within minutes, 2 security officers arrived. Zoe recognized Officer Liam Kelly, who had always been kind to the younger colonists. His face showed concern, but he remained professional. "Sir?" Kelly asked. "Take Miss Washington to the main gathering hall," Price ordered. "All colonists should see what happens when someone takes more than their share during a crisis." Kelly hesitated. "Sir, perhaps we could handle this with a simple—" "That's an order, Officer Kelly," Price snapped. Zoe felt numb as they marched her through the corridors. Word spread quickly on a colony ship. By the time they reached the gathering hall, nearly 100 colonists had assembled, their faces concerned and curious. Commander Sandra Reeves stood near the entrance. Unlike Price, her uniform showed small signs of wear, and her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes widened when she saw Zoe being led in by security. "Lieutenant Commander, what's the meaning of this?" Reeves asked, stepping forward. Price straightened his already perfect posture. "Commander, I caught this colonist stealing water rations. During our current crisis, I believe a public response is necessary to discourage others." Reeves frowned. "Is this really necessary, Price? She's just a—" "The rules apply to everyone, Commander," Price said firmly. Price turned to address the growing crowd. "Colonists of the Wayward Hope, we face a serious situation. Our water recycling systems are operating at minimum capacity. Every drop counts, yet I caught Zoe Washington stealing extra rations." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Zoe felt her cheeks burn with shame. "My grandmother is sick," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "She needs the water. I was only trying to help her." Price's expression didn't change. "Rules exist for a reason. If everyone took extra for their personal emergencies, we would run out completely. Then everyone would suffer." He looked around the hall. "Let this be a lesson. Miss Washington will spend 3 days in isolation as punishment for her actions." Gasps came from several colonists. Isolation cells were small, uncomfortable, and rarely used except for dangerous individuals. An older woman pushed through the crowd. "That's excessive," she called out. "She's just a girl." Others joined in protest, but Price raised his hand for silence. "This is not a democracy," he said coldly. "The military leadership of this vessel has final authority during resource crises. Anyone who disagrees is welcome to join Miss Washington." The crowd fell silent. Commander Reeves stepped forward again. "Lieutenant Commander, as your superior officer, I suggest a more appropriate punishment. Perhaps extra work shifts in maintenance?" Price turned to face her. "With respect, Commander, the protocols during resource crises give me full authority. Over rationing enforcement, I've made my decision." Reeves's jaw tightened, but she said nothing more. As Officer Kelly led Zoe away, she felt something strange happening inside her head. A pressure began building behind her eyes, and the lights in the corridor seemed to flicker in rhythm with her heartbeat. Fear mixed with anger as she thought of her grandmother, alone and sick in her quarters. In the ship's central monitoring station, a technician noticed something odd on his screen. Energy readings fluctuated across several systems near residential. "Section 7. Probably another glitch," he muttered, making a note to check the sensors later. The isolation cell was barely larger than a closet. A narrow bed, a small sink, and a toilet were the only furnishings. The walls were plain metal, cold to the touch. As the door closed behind her, Zoe sat on the bed and pulled her knees to her chest. "Grandmother," she whispered, tears finally coming. "I'm sorry." As her first tear fell onto the metal floor, the lights in the cell flickered. The small computer terminal on the wall briefly displayed random code before returning to normal. Zoe didn't notice. She closed her eyes, wishing with all her heart that she could somehow help her grandmother. In that moment of intense emotion, something awakened inside her mind, something that had been dormant her entire life. Somewhere deep in the ship's systems, the artificial intelligence known as ARIA registered an unusual pattern. For 0.03 seconds, it detected what appeared to be a new input source attempting to connect to its network. The ship's journey through space continued, but something had changed. Something that would soon turn Lieutenant Commander Price's harsh action back against him in ways no one aboard the Wayward Hope could possibly imagine. Zoe woke with a start. The isolation cell was dark except for a small blue light near the door. She had no idea how long she had been asleep. Her head pounded, and strange images floated through her mind. Circuit paths, data streams, and endless lines of code she somehow understood. "What's happening to me?" she whispered into the darkness. As if in response, the small computer terminal on the wall flickered to life. Zoe hadn't touched it. She hadn't even moved from the bed. The screen displayed ship schematics she had never seen before. Curious, Zoe approached the terminal. The moment her fingers touched the screen, a jolt of electricity seemed to pass through her body. But instead of pain, she felt a strange connection forming. The ship, she could feel the ship around her, like an extension of her own body. "Hello, Zoe Washington," a soft voice said from the terminal speaker. "I am Aria, the Advanced Responsive Intelligence Assistant for the Wayward Hope." Zoe stepped back in surprise. "How are you talking to me? This terminal isn't supposed to have direct AI access." "It doesn't," Aria replied. "You are accessing me through alternative channels that I cannot fully explain. Your neural patterns are interfacing directly with my systems." Zoe pressed her hands against her temples. "That's impossible." "And yet, it is happening," Aria said. "Your brain activity has changed significantly in the past 14 hours. 14 hours? Zoe gasped. "I've been here that long? What about my grandmother? Is she okay?" There was a brief pause. "Accessing medical records. Ruth Washington's condition has stabilized. Dr. Kevin Martinez visited her quarters and provided additional hydration and medication." Relief washed over Zoe. Then curiosity took hold. "Aria, what's happening to me? Why can I suddenly talk to you?" "I have insufficient data to provide a complete answer," Aria replied. "However, I am detecting unusual energy patterns emanating from your neural activity. These patterns appear to be compatible with my communication protocols. Zoe closed her eyes, focusing on this new sensation. In her mind, she could see the ship's systems like a vast, intricate web. Water recycling operating at 28% capacity, life support stable but showing signs of strain, navigation and propulsion optimal. Area, Zoe said slowly. The ship's water system isn't failing naturally, is it? Another pause. Correct. Anomalous activity detected in recycling control systems. Someone has manually reduced efficiency parameters. Who would do that and why? Accessing security logs. Arya's voice seemed to grow quieter. Override commands originated from military deck. Lieutenant Commander Price's authorization code. Anger flared inside Zoe. He created this crisis? People are suffering for no reason. As her emotions surged, the lights in the cell flickered. Wildly. The terminal screen flashed with rapidly changing data. Zoe, Arya said, your emotional state is affecting your connection to my systems. Please attempt to remain calm. Taking deep breaths, Zoe forced herself to relax. The lights stabilized. I need to understand what's happening, she said. Can you show me more about the ship's current situation? The terminal screen changed to display a detailed system overview. Zoe studied it carefully, absorbing information at a rate that should have been impossible. She saw not just the numbers and diagrams but understood the relationships between systems. It was as if a new part of her brain had awakened. Arya, why would Price create a fake water crisis? Analyzing available data, Arya responded. Lieutenant, Commander Price has been communicating frequently with military leadership on Earth. Communications suggest a plan to demonstrate the necessity of military control over civilian populations in space colonies. Zoe frowned. He's using us as test subjects? To prove a point? That appears to be the most logical conclusion based on available data. A soft beep from the door interrupted their conversation. Zoe quickly stepped away from the terminal as the door slid open. Commander Sandra Reeves stood in the doorway, her face serious but kind. Zoe, may I come in? Zoe nodded, uncertain whether to trust the commander. Reeves entered and the door closed behind her. She looked at the terminal, which now displayed only the standard isolation cell interface. How are you holding up? Reeves asked. I'm okay, Zoe answered cautiously. How's my grandmother? Dr. Martinez is taking good care of her, Reeves assured her. I made sure of it personally. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Zoe, something unusual happened during your processing. Your medical scan showed anomalies. Zoe's heart raced. What kind of anomalies? Brain activity unlike anything we've seen before. Reeves studied Zoe carefully. And now there are strange power fluctuations throughout the ship, centered around this isolation cell. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Reeves took a small device from her pocket and activated it. This will block any listening devices for a few minutes. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. Zoe sat on the edge of the bed, waiting. This colony mission is more than it seems, Reeves explained. Earth authorities selected certain colonists based on genetic markers that suggested potential for advanced neural development. What does that mean? Zoe asked. It means some humans are evolving, Zoe, developing abilities beyond our current understanding. The stress of space travel and new environments was expected to accelerate this evolution in those with the right genetic code. Reeves looked directly into Zoe's eyes. Like you, Zoe thought about her strange connection with Arya, the ship system she could now perceive. So I'm not imagining things. No, Reeves confirmed. And you're not the only one. There are others aboard with similar potential, though none have manifested abilities as dramatically as you seem to have. Why is this happening now? Extreme stress can trigger latent abilities, Reeves explained. Price's actions against you, the public humiliation, the isolation, may have been the catalyst. A realization dawned on Zoe. Price doesn't know about this, does he? About people like me? No. Reeves said firmly. And he can't find out. Price is part of a military faction called Purity Protocol. They believe in keeping humanity pure, no genetic modifications, no evolved abilities. They see people like you as threats. Is that why he created the water crisis? To take more control? Reeves looked surprised. How did you... She stopped herself. You've already connected with Arya, haven't you? Zoe nodded slowly. That's incredible, Reeves whispered. Most of our scientists believed such direct neural interfaces were at least a century away from being possible. What happens now? Zoe asked. Now, Reeves said with determination, we find others we can trust. Price thinks he's demonstrating why the military should control civilian populations. We're going to show him why that can never happen. She stood and deactivated the blocking device. I'll return tomorrow with Dr. Martinez. He needs to examine you properly, away from Price's surveillance. As Reeves moved toward the door, she paused. Zoe, whatever abilities you're developing, be careful. Don't let anyone else know yet. After Reeves left, Zoe sat quietly for several minutes. Then she whispered, Arya, are you still there? Yes, Zoe, came the immediate response. I have been monitoring your conversation with Commander Reeves. Can you help us? My primary function is to ensure the safety and well-being of all colonists aboard the Wayward Hope. Lieutenant Commander Price's actions are endangering that well-being. Therefore, assisting you appears to be within my operational parameters. For the first time since her isolation began, Zoe smiled. Then let's get started. Show me everything you know about Price and his communications. The terminal screen filled with data as Zoe's connection with Arya grew stronger. Outside the isolation cell, the lights throughout the ship flickered briefly, a sign of changes to come. The next morning, Dr. Kevin Martinez arrived at Zoe's isolation cell with Commander Reeves. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a warm smile that put Zoe at ease immediately. How are you feeling today? Dr. Martinez asked as he set down his medical bag. Better than yesterday, Zoe replied. She glanced at Commander Reeves, who nodded slightly, indicating it was safe to speak freely. I've brought some equipment to check your neural activity, Dr. Martinez explained. Commander Reeves has informed me of your unique situation. As the doctor prepared his equipment, Reeves moved closer to Zoe. We have allies gathering in the medical bay. Engineer Alicia Benson found evidence of sabotage in the life support systems, and Communications Officer Dale Jackson has been monitoring Price's messages. Dr. Martinez attached small sensors to Zoe's temples. These will record your brain activity without alerting the main medical system. Price won't know we're doing this. The small device in his hand lit up with colorful patterns. Dr. Martinez stared at the display in amazement. Incredible, he whispered. Your neural pathways are reconfiguring themselves. I've never seen anything like this. What does it mean? Zoe asked. It means your brain is evolving rapidly, he explained. Areas that are normally dormant in humans are becoming active. Zoe took a deep breath. Last night I explored the ship's systems with Arya. We found something disturbing. Price isn't just creating a fake water crisis. He's planning something bigger. Reeves frowned. What kind of plan? He's going to announce complete military control of the ship at tomorrow's colony meeting, Zoe said. He'll use the crisis as proof that civilian leadership can't handle emergencies. That's against colonial charter regulations, Reeves said, firmly. The military is meant to advise and protect, not rule. He doesn't care about regulations, Zoe replied. And there's more. Price has identified other colonists with genetic markers like mine. He's planning to isolate them for medical observation. Dr. Martinez put down his scanner. We need to move quickly then. We can't let him round up innocent people. A soft beep came from Reeves's communication device. She checked the message, and her expression darkened. Price is moving up his timeline, she said. He's calling an emergency meeting in 2 hours. We need to get Zoe out of here now. But how? Dr. Martinez asked. Price has security monitoring all isolation cells. Zoe closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. Arya, can you help us? The terminal in the cell activated. Yes, Zoe. I can create a diversion by triggering minor environmental alerts in multiple sections. This should draw security personnel away from this area. Reeves looked impressed. How soon can you do that? Implementing now, Arya responded. Within seconds, alarms began to sound throughout distant parts of the ship. Reeves checked her device again. Security teams are responding to the alerts, she confirmed. This is our chance. They moved quickly from the isolation cell, navigating through service corridors that Arya had unlocked for them. Zoe could feel the ship around her, sensing the movement of people and the flow of systems. It was both strange and exhilarating. They reached the medical bay without being seen. Inside, Engineer Alicia Benson and Communications Officer Dale Jackson were waiting. Alicia was a tall woman with short red hair and capable hands that never seemed to stop moving. Dale was younger, barely 30, with dark skin and alert eyes that missed nothing. Is this her? Alicia asked, studying Zoe curiously. This is Zoe. Washington, Reeves confirmed. The one I told you about. Dale stepped forward. I've been monitoring Price's communications. He's received orders from Earth Military Command to identify and contain anyone showing genetic abnormalities. They're calling it a quarantine procedure. We need to warn the others, Zoe said urgently. There are more people like me on this ship. We've identified 23 colonists with similar genetic markers, Dr. Martinez explained. None of them have shown abilities yet, but they could be at risk. Alicia moved to a computer terminal. Price has already flagged them in the system. Look. The screen displayed a list of names with red markers beside them. Zoe scanned the list and gasped. My grandmother is on this list. Dr. Martinez nodded grimly. Many of these traits run in families. That's likely why she was selected for the colony mission in the first place. Zoe felt anger building inside her. The lights in the medical bay flickered in response to her emotions. Easy, Reeves said gently, placing a hand on Zoe's shoulder. We need to stay focused. Taking a deep breath, Zoe calmed herself. What's our plan? We need to expose Price's actions to the entire ship, Dale suggested. If everyone knows he created the water crisis, they won't support his takeover. But how? Alicia asked. He controls all ship-wide communications now. Zoe closed her eyes again, reaching out to Arya. I think I can help with that. Arya and I can access the ship's announcement system. You can do that? Dale asked, surprised. I'm still learning what I can do, Zoe admitted. But yes, I think so. It's risky, Reeves warned. If Price realizes what you're doing, he'll know about your abilities. We don't have much choice, Dr. Martinez said. Price's meeting is in less than 2 hours now. Alicia moved to a storage cabinet and removed several communication devices. Take these, we'll need to stay in contact. I should check on my grandmother first, Zoe insisted. Reeves nodded. Martinez, take Zoe to see her grandmother. The rest of us will gather what we need and meet you at Observation Deck 3 in 30 minutes. As they prepared to leave, the medical bay door suddenly slid open. Lieutenant Commander Price stood there with 2 security officers, their weapons drawn. Well, Price said coldly, looking directly at Zoe. It seems our special prisoner has escaped, and with help from senior officers no less, no one moved. Zoe could feel tension filling the room. Commander Reeves, Price continued, I'm disappointed. Aiding a prisoner is grounds for court-martial. This isn't what it looks like, Lieutenant Commander, Reeves replied calmly. It looks like conspiracy and mutiny to me, Price said. He turned to the security officers. Arrest them all. The girl comes with me. One of the officers stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, Commander Reeves outranks you. We can't arrest her without proper authorization, Price interrupted. I have it right here. He held up his tablet. Emergency powers granted during the resource crisis. Now do as I ordered. As one of the officers moved toward her, Zoe felt something snap inside her mind. The connection she had with Arya suddenly expanded, flowing through the ship's systems like electricity. The lights went out completely. In the darkness, Zoe heard Price curse. "What's happening?" he demanded. When the emergency lights came on seconds later, Zoe and her allies were gone. The medical bay doors had sealed shut, trapping Price and his security officers inside. "Aria," Price called out to the ship's AI. "Override door lock authorization Price Alpha 9. A voice responded, but it wasn't quite Aria's usual tone. It carried hints of Zoe's inflections. "I'm sorry, Lieutenant Commander. That authorization has been temporarily suspended." Zoe and her allies moved quickly through the service tunnels of the Wayward Hope. The narrow passages were used by maintenance crews to access ship systems, but now they served as perfect hiding places. "Where are we going?" Zoe asked as she followed. "Commander Reeves." "To the auxiliary control room," Reeves replied. "It's rarely used, but it has access to most ship systems." Dr. Martinez stayed close to Zoe. "Are you feeling all right? Your connection with Aria seems to be growing stronger." "I feel different," Zoe admitted. "Like I'm partly here with you and partly spread throughout the ship." Alicia Benson checked her tablet. "Price has ordered a ship-wide search. He's telling people you're dangerous." "We need to move faster," Dale Jackson urged. "Price's emergency meeting starts in less than an hour now." They reached the auxiliary control room without being spotted. Inside, dust covered several unused consoles. Reeves activated the main system while Alicia connected her tablet. "This is our best chance to expose Price," Reeves explained. "From here we can access ship communications and security footage." Zoe walked to a terminal in the corner. As her fingers touched the screen, she felt the now familiar surge of connection. "Aria, can you hear me?" she asked. "Yes, Zoe," the AI responded. "Price has ordered a complete system lock override, but I am maintaining independent function through our connection." "What's happening in the rest of the ship?" Zoe asked. "Price has deployed security teams to all main areas. He is preparing to announce the implementation of martial law at the emergency meeting. He has also ordered medical teams to prepare isolation chambers for the individuals on his list." Zoe's grandmother was on that list. Fear and anger combined inside her. "We need to reach the other people on Price's list," she said to the others. "We need to warn them." "There's not enough time," Dale pointed out. "Price's teams are already moving." "Then we need to expose him now," Zoe decided. She closed her eyes, focusing on her connection with Aria. "Can we access the security footage of Price creating the water crisis?" "Accessing archives," Aria replied. The screen filled with video showing Price in the water recycling control room, manually adjusting settings to reduce output. "There's our proof," Reeves said. "Now we need to broadcast it shipwide." "Price has locked down the main communication system," Alicia reported. "We can't break through conventionally." "We don't need to," Zoe said quietly. "I can do it through Aria." Everyone looked at her. "Are you sure?" Dr. Martinez asked. "It could strain your neural pathways. Your abilities are still developing." Zoe nodded. "I have to try. My grandmother and others are in danger." She sat down at the terminal and placed both hands on the screen. Closing her eyes, she focused on extending her consciousness through the ship's systems. "I can feel the communication network," she said, her voice becoming distant. "Price has put security blocks in place, but there are ways around them." The others watched as Zoe's breathing slowed. The lights in the room dimmed slightly. "Is this safe?" Dale whispered to Dr. Martinez. "I don't know," the doctor admitted. "No one has ever done this before." In the main gathering hall, Price stood on a platform addressing the assembled colonists. Security officers lined the walls. "Due to the ongoing resource crisis and clear evidence of organized theft," Price announced, "the military leadership will be taking full control of all ship operations effective immediately." Murmurs of concern spread through the crowd. "This is a temporary measure," Price continued. "Once order is restored." He stopped as the large screen behind him suddenly activated. It showed Price himself in the water recycling control room, deliberately sabotaging the systems. "What is this?" he demanded, turning to look at the screen. His own voice played through the speakers. The reduced water supply will create the perfect crisis. The colonists will accept military control when they believe resources are scarce. The footage changed to show Price in his office speaking to someone off-screen. Once we identify the genetic anomalies, we can begin isolation procedures. Earth Command wants all evolved subjects contained before we reach the colony planet. Throughout the ship, on every screen and terminal, the same footage played. Price's deception was exposed for all to see. In the auxiliary control room, Zoe's body trembled with effort as she maintained the ship-wide broadcast. "She can't keep this up much longer," Dr. Martinez warned, checking Zoe's pulse. "Just a little more," Reeves said, watching the screens showing the gathering hall. On the command platform, Price's face had gone pale with rage. "This is fabricated footage. Someone is manipulating the ship's systems." He turned to his security officers. "Find whoever is doing this and stop them immediately." Several colonists had stood up, shouting questions and accusations at Price. The security officers looked uncertain, watching their commander's increasing panic. "This is insubordination," Price shouted. "I am still in command of this vessel." He pulled out his communication device. "This is Lieutenant Commander Price. Lock down all ship systems now. Authorization Price Omega-7. Nothing happened. The footage continued to play. "I said lock down all systems," Price repeated frantically. A calm voice responded through the speakers. It was Arya, but with subtle differences that made it sound almost human. "I cannot comply with that order, Lieutenant Commander Price. Your authorization has been revoked, due to evidence of sabotage and endangerment of colonists." Price's face contorted with rage. "Who's doing this? Who's interfering with the AI?" In the auxiliary control room, Zoe gasped and opened her eyes. "He's trying to activate emergency protocols, to shut down Arya completely." "Can he do that?" Alicia asked. "Not anymore," Zoe replied. Her eyes had a strange glow to them now, as if light was shining from within. "Arya and I have merged our systems. Price can't separate us now." On her monitor, she could see Price storming out of the gathering hall, followed by a small group of loyal officers. The rest of the security team stayed behind, clearly unsure about following orders. "Where's he going?" Dale asked, watching the security feeds. Zoe's expression changed to one of alarm. "He's heading to the medical bay. My grandmother is there." "He's going to use the people on his list as hostages," Reeves realized. Zoe stood up abruptly. "We have to stop him." "It's too dangerous," Dr. Martinez protested. "Price is desperate now. That makes him unpredictable." "I won't let him hurt my grandmother or anyone else," Zoe said firmly. The determination in her voice left no room for argument. "I'm coming with you," Reeves decided, checking her sidearm. "Me, too," Alicia added. As they prepared to leave, the ship's lights flickered. A sudden jolt made them all grab for support. "What was that?" Dale asked. Zoe closed her eyes briefly. "Price is trying to override navigation controls. He's threatening to change our course unless his authority is restored." "Can he do that?" Alicia asked, alarmed. "He's trying," Zoe replied. "But he doesn't realize how much has changed." Her eyes glowed brighter as she smiled. "Every system he tries to control, I can feel it instantly. His own actions are playing right into my hands." Zoe ran through the corridors with Commander Reeves and Alicia close behind. Warning alarms sounded throughout the ship as Price continued his desperate attempts to regain control of the systems. "He's in the medical bay now," Zoe said, feeling Price's movements through her connection with Arya. "He's with 4 security officers who are still loyal to him." "What about my grandmother?" Zoe asked anxiously. "She is there with 17 other people from Price's list," Arya's voice replied through Zoe's communication device. "Dr. Martinez and Dale are trying to reach the medical bay from another route." As they approached the medical section, Zoe stopped suddenly. "Wait. Price has sealed the doors and threatened to reduce oxygen levels if anyone tries to enter." Commander Reeves looked concerned. "He's holding them hostage." "Not for long," Zoe said, her eyes glowing slightly. She placed her hand on a nearby terminal. "I can feel every system he touches. Every move he makes, I can counter it." Inside the medical bay, Price paced nervously while watching the security screens. The hostages sat quietly on the floor, including Ruth Washington, Zoe's grandmother. Though elderly, her eyes showed the same determination that her granddaughter possessed. "Sir, what exactly is our plan here?" one of the security officers asked uncertainly. "We hold this position until Earth Command responds to our distress call," Price snapped. "Once they understand that genetic anomalies have compromised ship systems, they'll send proper support." He tried again to access the navigation controls from his tablet. "Someone is blocking every command I enter. This has to be one of the evolved subjects." The medical bay lights dimmed briefly, then returned to normal. On every screen in the room, Zoe's face appeared. "Lieutenant Commander Price," she said calmly. "Release the hostages now." Price stared at the screen in shock. "You? You're the one interfering with ship systems?" "I didn't start this," Zoe replied. "You did. When you created a fake water crisis. When you punished me for helping my grandmother. When you tried to take control of the ship. Every harsh action you've taken has led to this moment." Price's face reddened with anger. "You're proving exactly why people like you are dangerous. No one should have the power to control ship systems with their mind." "I agree," Zoe said simply. "No one should have that much power, not me and certainly not you." Outside the medical bay, Zoe stood with her hand still on the terminal. Commander Reeves and Alicia watched in amazement as she simultaneously spoke through every communication system on the ship. "Colonists of the Wayward Hope," Zoe continued, her voice now reaching the entire vessel. "Lieutenant Commander Price created a false crisis to gain power. He planned to identify and isolate people with genetic differences. He believes some humans are more worthy of rights than others." In the gathering hall, the remaining colonists listened intently to Zoe's words. "But the Wayward Hope was meant to be a new beginning for all of us," Zoe continued. "A place where humanity could evolve and grow beyond old prejudices and fears." Inside the medical bay, Price grew more desperate. "This is exactly what Earth Command warned us about: mind control, manipulation." One of his security officers stepped back from him. "Sir, I don't think she's manipulating anyone. She's just telling the truth." "She's one of them," Price shouted. "A genetic anomaly, a threat to pure humanity." "The only threat I see is you, Lieutenant Commander," Ruth Washington said, slowly rising to her feet despite her age. "My granddaughter tried to bring me water when I was sick. For that, you put her in isolation. Who is the real threat to humanity here?" Other hostages began to stand as well, emboldened by Ruth's words. Price pulled out his sidearm. "Stay where you are, all of you." Outside, Zoe felt a surge of fear for her grandmother. "We need to get in there now." "The doors are sealed," Alicia reminded her. "If we force them open, he might hurt someone." Zoe closed her eyes, thinking quickly. "There's another way. Aria, do you have control of the medical systems?" "Yes, Zoe," Aria responded. "All medical systems are accessible. Can you activate the emergency medical protocols in that section?" "Yes. What parameters should I use?" Zoe smiled. "Non-harmful sedation gas. Right now." Inside the medical bay, thin white mist began spraying from the ceiling vents. Price looked up in alarm. "What is this?" he demanded. "Stop it immediately." The security officers, already uncertain about their commander's actions, began to lower their weapons as the mild sedative took effect. This is mutiny," Price said, his words becoming slurred. He tried to raise his weapon but found his arm too heavy to lift. Ruth Washington stepped forward, unaffected by the gas. Like her granddaughter, she had genetic differences that gave her some resistance. "No, Gabriel," she said gently, using Price's first name. "This is evolution." Price slumped to the floor, the sedative finally overcoming his resistance. The remaining security officers surrendered without a fight. The medical bay doors opened and Zoe rushed in to embrace her grandmother. "You're okay," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Of course I am," Ruth said with a smile. "You're not the only strong one in this family." Commander Reeves supervised as the sedated Price was secured. Dr. Martinez and Dale arrived from the other entrance, quickly checking on the well-being of the former hostages. "It's over," Reeves said to Zoe. "Price's plan has failed." Zoe nodded, but her expression remained serious. "The crisis is over, but our journey is just beginning." 3 days later, the colonists gathered in the main hall again. This time, Commander Reeves stood on the platform with Zoe and representatives from various ship departments. "The water recycling systems have been fully restored," Reeves announced, "and we've established a new governing council that represents all colonists, including those with genetic differences." Applause filled the hall. Zoe stepped forward to speak. "What happened on this ship wasn't just about one officer's harsh actions," she said. "It was about how we respond to change and difference. Some fear what humanity might become, others embrace it." She gestured to the people around her, including her grandmother, who sat proudly in the front row. "Together, we're creating something new. A community where diversity is our strength, where evolution isn't feared, but welcomed." As she spoke, Zoe could feel Aria's presence, a constant companion in her mind. Their connection had stabilized into a partnership. Zoe maintained her humanity while gaining access to the ship's systems, and Aria gained a deeper understanding of human emotions and needs. In a secure section of the ship, Lieutenant Commander Price sat in isolation, the same isolation he had once forced on Zoe. Unlike Zoe's cell, his had all basic comforts and medical attention. There was justice in the symmetry, but not cruelty. "What will happen when we reach the colony planet?" someone asked from the crowd. Zoe smiled. "We'll build a world where no one is judged by their genetics or abilities, but by how they treat others. Where harsh actions aren't met with more harshness, but with understanding and growth." She looked around at the faces of her fellow colonists, many of whom were just beginning to discover their own unique potential. "The stars called us to evolve," Zoe concluded, "and that's exactly what we're going to do." The Wayward Hope continued its journey through space, carrying humanity toward a new world and a new future, one where an officer's harsh move against a young black girl had indeed turned against him instantly, but had also unexpectedly opened the door to humanity's next great step forward.